We'll go ahead. What'd you say?
Let's get the priest.
Yeah, right, there you go. Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. If everyone could stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Deanna, if you could roll call, please.
Angie Schreiber,
Here.
Jill Maddock Nelson,
Here.
Kristen Matt Miller,
Here.
Daniel Nicholson,
Here.
Jean Adams,
Here.
Randy Myers, Mike Parizek,
Here.
Melissa Cornelius,
Here.
Danny Pyatt. Thank you.
All right, and Angie is going to go ahead and read our district mission.
Our mission is driven by purpose, guided by integrity, defined by success. Our vision is to build a proud Antigo community, and our motto is don't talk about it, be about it.
And we do have some people signed up for public comment today.
I don't think Danny's ever given me those.
So I don't have Danny's list, or what Danny usually reads before public comment, so I'm just going to, Melinda has it. Okay, thank you, sorry. All right. The presiding officer of each board meeting at which public comment is permitted shall administer the rules of the board for its conduct. The presiding officer shall be guided by the following rules. Public comment shall be permitted before the board takes official action on any issue of substance. Attendees must register their intention to comment in the public portion of the meeting upon their arrival at the meeting. Comments made by the public shall be civil in content and tone, affirming the decorum established for a school board meeting by the school board. Disparaging comments, remarks about the school board members, employees, students, physicians, position titles, and/or district citizens shall not be permitted. Comments by the public shall be in reference to a specific agenda item. Participants must be recognized by the presiding officer and will be requested to preface their comments by announcements of their name and group affiliation, if and when appropriate. Each statement made by the participant shall be limited to 5-minute duration. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on the topic have been heard. Participants shall direct all comments to the board and not to staff or other participants. Participants shall address only topics within the legitimate jurisdiction of the board. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. The presiding officer may interrupt, warn, terminate a participant's statement when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. Request any individual to leave the meeting when the person does not observe reasonable decorum. Request the assistance of law enforcement officers in the removal of a disorderly person when the person's conduct interferes with the orderly progress of the meeting. Call for a recess or an adjournment to another time when the lack of public decorum so interferes with orderly conduct of the meeting as to warrant such action. The portion of the meeting during which the comment of the public is invited shall be limited to 60 minutes unless extended vote by the board. Reminder to board members and speakers, this is not a conversation between the board and the person speaking at the microphone. The person at the microphone will be allotted their 5 minutes to speak, and we move on to the next person who has signed up to speak. So first we have Sarah Repp.
Well, thank you again for the opportunity for public comment. My name is Sarah Repp, and I am speaking as a community member, a parent of a student in the district, former Aquatic Center board member, and the City of Antigo Park and Recreation Cemetery Director. I again want to stress the importance of the ability to have an open dialogue between the school board, the foundation members, former Aquatic Center board members, and the YMCA. I am strongly advocating for the creation of a committee or the opportunity to be allowed to have open discussions which can deliver solutions regarding the current and future needs of the Aquatic Center. All of the organizations mentioned are important to finding a solution that is reasonable and best for all parties and the community. I understand all the listed organizations have primary responsibilities and roles that take precedence in daily operations and overall organizational missions. However, I think it is paramount that we recognize that we all serve our community and we all function in public service roles, which is also primary to overall community success. Without our collective cooperation, our success as a community lacks the foundation to succeed and serve our residents and taxpayers. Regarding the Aquatic Center and the various roles of participating organizations, the school board, you, are critical to ensuring the continued success of a community asset that supports local business recruitment, retention, and growth, as well as the numerous health, wellness, and safety benefits that have been identified in numerous public meetings prior. The foundation, supported by generous community members and benefactors, has a history of supporting the district in various initiatives that put our students and educators first. They have come forward with solutions regarding short-term funding gaps and long-term sustainability for the future of a community and district asset, the Aquatic Center. Former Aquatic Center board members have decades of experience in finance, operations, capital projects, daily operations, and policy. Their willingness to find solutions, offer support, and expertise shares the burden with district staff, administration, and the current sitting school board. The Woodson YMCA brings their years of specific expertise in programming, aquatics, and facility management, and staff training and needs. They have been an incredible asset and have been able to increase revenues, implement additional programming, and analyze financial data in terms of daily operations, proposing solutions that best serve the district and community. They have an expert understanding of the pool, and they are a resource that needs to be at the table. Due to the recent election, there are a number of new board members that need to be provided historical and relevant information so informed decisions can be made regarding the future operations of the pool. The City of Antigo hosts the registration software, which is utilized by the Aquatic Center for processing registrations and reservations. Additionally, the data can be used to justify programming, analyze usage data, and track memberships efficiently. Partnership between the city and Aquatic Center result in a cost of $1,200 to the Aquatic Center for use of the robust software, eliminating the need for staff to physically process all registration. Also, the communication to those registered in the software is simply done through email. I mentioned the total cost of $1,200 annually because the financial budget document provided by the district listed software costs at $5,800. There was also an annual postage cost listed in the budget, $300, that doesn't align with current expenses that I'm aware of. Garbage service is listed at $6,000. We currently contract with GFL annually for a 2-yard dumpster, serviced weekly for $1,500, a little over. There's also laundry that I have some questions about. But this isn't meant to be a browbeating session. It's just meant to ask some questions and put some information out there. I implore you as a board to ask questions, to be open to dialogue and information, consider resources and knowledge that is willingly being offered by volunteers wanting the best for all. Not only is it your role to serve the community by being a participant, but your role is also to ensure we fulfill the mission of the community and support solutions that strengthen us as a whole, not just for the immediate need, but for the future of our youth and community. I am confident that collectively and together, we can be driven by purpose, guided by integrity, and defined by success, building a proud Antigo community, not just one we talk about, but one we are about. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have Tom Koss.
Good afternoon. President of the board of the Foundation of the School District of Antigo, 50-year financial advisor, tax preparer, etc. Crazy. Anyway, I ran some numbers because I brought numbers to the board over the last few months, and I went back to the audited statements for the fiscal year ending June 30 of 24 and saw that the total expenses for operating the pool were $536,000. I went to the audited statement for the year ending 6/30/25 and found that they were $539,000. Now note, and I'm aware that didn't include toilet paper, paper towels, other supplies that came from the regular school building, but take it as it may. Then the task force, as I was a part of on April 21st, was given a budget that showed that this year ending this past June 30th looked like an expenditure of $634,750. Then in early May, Attorney Davis Runde gave us on the foundation a budget that showed the total expense for this coming year, the one we're in now, expected to be $781,000. Then at last Monday's Finance Committee, the Finance Committee members were told that it looks like it's going to cost $1 million a year to operate the aquatic center, the expenses. So I started getting concerned because that's a pretty substantial increase over a period of a few months. So I think there was a couple issues. One is that some Fund 80 expenses that used to be covered by Fund 10 are in there. So I called an attorney from a large Wisconsin law firm whose firm works mostly with districts. And he told me if the district isn't using their own Fund 10 and such to fix a broken door or to do maintenance on their building, it doesn't matter if community activities, district activity, it doesn't matter what's going on inside it, it's a district building. It's their responsibility. He said, so you've got to take that a little further. The second thing I did is I went to the very first expense listed on the fund budget that Davis gave us. It lists $50,000 to clean the facility. So I went to a couple vendors. I've worked with businesses for decades. And I got a vendor quote. This vendor will clean the entire facility, lobby, entry, the entire thing for $19,000 a year, not $50,000. We would be happy to have this vendor do it, I'm sure, and I'll support that. So I'm just looking at these large increases in the costs, and I'm thinking, you know, it's coincidental, maybe, but these expenses have really ballooned along with the number of times I've stood before the board and said, this foundation is willing to help support these deficits that are being run with the aquatic center. So we are. But when the deficits grow like this, we have pause to be concerned. So we're thinking and wondering about it. You, board, have to take care of all that. I just wanted to put in front of you what the public sees and what we're looking at and the questions that we have. But thank you for listening, and anybody wants to see supporting documentation or info, I'm happy to share and work with you in any way. The committee Sarah mentioned might be a good way to get that all done, but thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And then Carol Bardo.
I'm going to apologize. I have no voice because of the smoke, so bear with me. I just have a few things about the pool that I'd like to say as a resident here. My name is Carol Bardo. I'm a 38-year resident of Antigo, a parent, a grandmother, a taxpayer, and a voter of the Unified School District of Antigo. And I have to admit I've become increasingly frustrated and discouraged by all the finger pointing, misinformation, and really divisive behavior I've seen by some of our residents. In listening and reading on social media, it seems that the wants in this community are varied. Some people want a sports complex, some want a new football stadium, and of course, some want the school district to increase local taxes to support operations of the aquatic center. Sadly, the group that I see missing, at least on social media, is a group that wants our children to succeed and learn the basic skills needed to be productive and successful as their adult lives. Just 4 years ago, our district ranked in the lowest tier of state testing, but apparently very few people in this district understand what that means. If a school goes 4 years straight at that level, as we were, the state, the DPI, will move in and step up and develop an improvement plan. Our current administration, our current staff and board knew that they needed to get to work. They rolled up their sleeves, and they did so. And in 2 years, the USDA has increased its ranking by 121 positions. The reason I'm saying this is because I feel that is the primary job of the school district, is to teach our children. It saddens me that with all these accomplishments, what we're hearing is the criticism of our district. This board, this district administration did not create this situation with our pool that has been an accumulative situation. There are 17 municipalities in the Unified School District, and it's only the local taxes. And in going to the pool task force meetings and learning, what has been going on, I have not met one person in this community, and I suspect it would be the same in the 17 total municipalities, that realize it is only tax dollars that fund our Fund 80. So I do think that sharing information and making people fully aware is something we need to do. And I totally agree with having some type of a task force that includes everybody, including community tax-paying members. I think that we need to decide what we want. And all the people that want these various goals for our school district and our community, they need to come together and they need to stop fussing with one another, put their money where their mouth is, get to work, and let the district do what the district's job is, and that's to teach our children, because those should be our priorities. They are our future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll be moving to the consent agenda. I'll be looking for a motion.
I have a motion. I move that the superintendent share the agenda and the attachments with the board in accordance with current board policy PO0166 agenda.
I believe we can discuss that during the superintendent report, but I don't believe we can add an agenda item at this time.
I believe it's relevant to the agenda, including the consent agenda. What we're doing is approving the agenda, and I'm suggesting that it's difficult to approve the agenda when we get it so late in the game, not in accordance with current board policy.
So we can move to discuss that once we have a motion on the floor for the consent agenda. I'll be looking for a motion.
I move the board approve the agenda, June 15th, 2026, and June 22nd, 2026 Board of Education meeting minutes, July 13th, 2026 HR Finance, Building and Grounds, and CPT Committee meeting minutes, and July 14th, 2026 Policy Committee meeting minutes, report of district new hires, report of resignations and retirements, financial reports for June 2026 and July 2026, consideration of current bills, checks number 9838 through 9894 in the amount of $226,601.94. ACHs number 252601536 through 262700052 in the amount of $1,259,624.40 in wire transfers in the amount of $17,752.20 for a total of $1,503,978.54.
Thank you, Jill. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Give me 1 second. I would like to see, this is my words, I'm gonna mess it up. Move the minutes from the HR and Finance Committee meeting as a separate agenda item.
So you like the HR Finance minutes as item I in board action?
might make more sense to do it as H and H becomes I.
She wants it to be I instead of H, because it's relevant to the Clara McKenna Aquatic Center.
Just so I just know that we can pull it off and discuss it, that's all I'm really doing about that. But I would think that once it's pulled off and discussed, then the board can take action whether it's on there or not.
We're gonna move it to H, or to I, just
'Kay.
because that's what I know. Okay, anyone else would like to speak to this motion? I need to abstain from check 9861 and 9873, please, Deanna.
9861 and 9873?
Correct.
Thank you.
I
need
would
to
like to
abstain.
speak to this motion.
Yes, Jean, go ahead.
You want to go? So I want to read from the board policy on the agenda. It says, "The approved agenda shall be available no later than 5 days prior to the meeting, and supporting materials should be available no later than 3 days prior to the meeting, so as to provide time for the study of the agenda by the board members." That's in our board policy. So for a regularly scheduled Monday board meeting, the agenda should be available to board members on Wednesday, and supporting materials should be available on Friday. This is my third regularly scheduled board meeting, and we've never hit those marks. I've raised this individually with the superintendent. I've raised it with the president, and I'm not getting anywhere, so I'd like to bring it up with the whole board and see if we can get board policy to be followed here. It's very difficult. This is a lot of information that comes to us. I want to give it the attention it deserves, and I think the policy is good. Let's follow it.
What policy number is it?
PO 0166, agenda.
I will say that when we put that policy into place, we had a week in between our committee meetings and our regular scheduled meeting, versus now we have our meetings back to back. Not that it's an excuse, but it is the situation when we had that policy put in place. So for us to have our committee meetings on Monday and then be able to create an agenda with that quick of a turnaround, it may be something that we need to revisit that policy based on where our meetings are currently stood or standing.
Or move the committees a week earlier.
Or move our committees, or it would actually have to be our board meeting back a week, I would think. No, that'd be, yeah, one or the other, we would have to look at that closer. But
Objectively, you could also say increased attendance at all committee meetings, because the items in the full board meeting basically are coming from our committee, like actionable items.
There's a lot on this agenda that isn't coming from the committees.
So would this be something that the policy committee could meet and discuss at the next, like next month? We could have a policy committee meeting and then discuss it at that time?
we could certainly do that. Does anyone else have anything to add?
I agree with you, Gene. It's very hard to go through all this material. There's a lot of things on here, and it's hard. I mean, we got stuff today at 3:30, and it's impossible, especially when you're working during the day, in order to be able to look at that and read it and research what you need to be able to make decisions here tonight. So I think we need to address that. The other thing that I have is I need to abstain, Deanna, from check number 1546, 1566 through 1569, 1583, and 0041.
I got it.
Thank you.
Kristen, I have another motion too that's relevant to this, but I don't know if I can make a motion while this other motion is hanging in the balance.
It would have to be a replacement motion.
Oh, I don't want to do that.
Amendment.
No, I
If
don't,
it's a completely separate motion, it would have to be a
Yeah.
replacement motion.
I don't
Unless
want
it's something that you can add as an amendment.
I don't think so.
Okay? Yes,
So,
Danny?
can I ask what is the reason for moving the HR Finance Committee meeting topics to after the pool? Just so I'm in the loop on that.
Before the pool, right?
I said after.
Oh.
Would you like it before the pool?
No, I'm just asking what was the reason for Jill's motion to move it there? Like, what was the reason for it?
We can discuss her points when we discuss it as an action item.
Yeah, I didn't speak to
Oh, okay.
the motion because the motion, or I spoke to my motion of of what we're on right now, the consent agenda. So I'm certainly willing to share feedback on why once we get to that agenda item.
Okay.
And we cannot move that to before the,
I don't know
I know, I'm
that, so
sorry.
I'm not going to do it because I
Okay.
don't know for sure.
sure, okay.
All right, we will go to the vote then. Does anyone, oh, sorry. Anyone like to change their vote? Okay. Can reveal the, okay, we have 7 for and 1 opposed. We will be moving on then to the administration reports. I'll turn it over to Mrs. Oginski.
So item A, we have monthly budget updates. Ms. Fossbender is present if anyone has questions. Our Director of Pupil Services and Special Education report is
I was too slow, Glenda, sorry. I move that the Director of Business Services provide the board with a year-to-date report of actual revenues and expenditures compared to the budget every month.
I would request that you would ask that from Kelly ahead of time so that she had time to prepare that, and then CC Danny on that for further.
Well, if we would approve it today, it wouldn't take effect for this meeting.
We can't we can't vote on informational items. We can only vote on agenda board action items.
But I'm making a motion relevant to the information that she's providing.
These aren't actionable items.
It's not actionable items, it's only information.
How on earth am I supposed to request this to happen?
Then you would, if you would like something on the agenda, you need to ask the board president, or in his absence, the vice president, to put it on the agenda ahead of time.
Can I ask if that's been requested to the business director?
I have not requested it before.
Perhaps it could be something that in working with the business director, we could get that and it could become common practice moving forward. I'm not sure.
I would agree, I don't know that it has to be something to voted upon versus just a conversation to request that. But here they're there to make a motion, it has to be an action item.
Okay.
No, that is because the agenda has to be posted for 24 hours, I believe. So,
Yes, but motions are how things happen at the board meeting.
You can only make a motion on a board actionable item.
Can you find a rule that says that? I am not aware of that rule.
That is the definition of board action.
That is the definition of board
Board
action.
action is the motions and approval of those motions.
So there are no
You can't-
motions during the administration reports.
You cannot make a motion outside of board action. And if you want something to be on board action or be on the agenda, you have to request it from the board president prior to the meeting and the agenda being posted.
I don't know about that, but I'll look it up.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Item B, Director of Pupil Services and Special Education. Ms. Yuska's report is posted, and she is present if anyone has questions.
I don't have a question. I would just like to formally welcome you to our district. We are very fortunate to have you, and welcome aboard.
Yes, same.
Item C, Director of Buildings and Grounds. The report is attached, and Mr. Leiterman is present if anyone has questions.
I just want to say thanks, Jake, for providing the written report. It's helpful. Appreciate it.
Item D, Director of Technology, Yearly Technology Recap. The report is posted, and Ms. Mushak is available if anyone has questions. Item E, Director of Curriculum and Instruction. The report is attached, and Ms. Stutzriem is available if anyone has questions. Okay, item F, Superintendent Report. So first, I posted about, as we continue preparing for the upcoming school year and advancing our referendum projects, several important initiatives have moved forward over the past few weeks. The district office and referendum projects, Jake and I met with Blue Design Group to finalize design plans and to review FF&E, which is furniture, fixtures, and equipment selections, and finalize the remaining design features for all referendum projects. These meetings represent another important milestone as we move forward from planning to implementation. Leader in Me for John H. Bradley Elementary. Planning continues for the implementation of Leader in Me at John H. Bradley Elementary. I met with Mr. Jokes to develop, along with Ms. Stutzriem, to develop our implementation timeline, meeting schedule, and professional learning opportunities. Our elementary leadership team, along with Ms. Stutzriem, has established dates to work on site with our Leader in Me coach, Jess Nichols. There's tremendous excitement among the team as we begin this work. Leader in Me aligns with our commitment to developing student leadership, strengthening school culture, and providing every student with opportunities to build the habits and skills necessary for lifelong success. Policy Committee, we met to review and discuss updates necessary to ensure district policies remain aligned with the Wisconsin Act 89 and current legal requirements. These revisions help ensure our policies continue to reflect best practices while maintaining compliance with state law. Updated policies will be brought forward to the board through the established review and approval process. Antigo High School principal search. On Thursday, our administrative team dedicated the majority of the day to conducting round one interviews for the Antigo High School principal position. Candidates participated in a structured interview process that included responding to consistent questions and developing and presenting a leadership plan based on district and school data that had been provided in advance. The quality of candidates and their presentations provided valuable insight to each applicant's leadership philosophy, instructional vision, and ability to analyze data to improve student outcomes. Round two interviews are being scheduled and will include participation from district administrators, staff members, parents, community representatives, and members of the Board of Education. This collaborative process will ensure multiple stakeholder perspectives are considered as we select the next leader of Antigo High School. John H. Bradley construction update. Construction at John H. Bradley Elementary continues to make excellent progress. Updated progress photos from July 26 are available for review and can be accessed using the link provided in the board packet. Thank you for your continued support as we move these important initiatives forward. Each of these efforts reflect our commitment to providing outstanding learning environments, developing strong leadership, and ensuring the long-term success of our students and our district. The link below that has the updated photographs, and a thank you for your continued support and leadership. As we prepare to welcome students back, I continue to be inspired by the dedication of our staff and community. Together, we're building outstanding learning environments, investing in exceptional people, and creating opportunities that will positively impact our students for years to come. Antigo Pride, Be About It, is more than our motto. It is the standard that guides our work each day. My team and I look forward to an outstanding school year as we continue to put students first in everything we do. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Mrs. Oginski?
I just have one quick question. In regards to the Antigo High School principal search,
Yes.
what happens, have no clue. I'm just trying to learn. What happens after round 2 interviews? What's the
So
next
after
step?
round 2, we hope to be at a place where we can make a selection.
Okay, just like the committee or whoever's interviewing. Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh, you're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, we will move on to board action. Letter A, consideration to approve the resolution awarding the sale of $20 million general obligation promissory notes, Series 2026. I'll be looking for a motion.
Excuse me, is it 20 or 28?
26 or 28? 26.
26?
26. Looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution awarding the sale of 20 million general obligation
Promissory.
Yes.
promissory notes, Series 2026 as presented.
Thank you, Jill. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I see that there is information presented, and a speaker ready to provide the information.
All right, we'll turn it over
Yep.
to Eric and Kelly.
Just go. Good evening, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity. Eric Cass, I'm a Director of Public Finance from PMA Securities. See some familiar faces here this evening, but wanted to walk through the execution of the competitive bid process that was done earlier today in relation to the final $20 million of issuance that was authorized by the November 2024 referendum. As part of that, I always like to start with on the first page, just giving a little bit of perspective in terms of where interest rates are. So when the district is issuing the $20 million, we're doing that on a tax exempt basis, which is an advantage that a municipal entity like a school district, Unified School District of Anago has, where in the municipal marketplace, that's where you're gonna get your lowest interest rate. So what you're looking at here is a 20-year history of a issuance that's repaid over 20 years. And you can see that the current level as of 7/17/2026 was 3.93%. Now I want to highlight that that's for a AAA rated school district, and you'll see it again later in the report. The rating for the Unified School District of Anago is A+, or about 4 notches below that. So albeit not apples to apples in terms of credit quality, it is the only strategic indicator that we have and we monitor on a daily basis. Becomes a little bit more clear on the next slide, where we look at dating back only to January 2025 and how interest rates are pretty volatile over that time period. You'll notice that on the top line, or actually all 3 lines, in April of 2025, there was a significant spike. That's just an example of how the market, even on the tax exempt basis, reacts to tariffs. So that was the indication of tariffs. Obviously those got paused and you can kind of see it settle down. There in late February, early March, there's a slight spike of 2026. That was the onset of the Iran war, and you can kind of track how some of those geopolitical events also definitely impact what we see in the municipal market space. A little bit about the process. So we received competitive bids earlier today. So what we do is we work with Kelly, we work with Glenda, and we work with Jake to gather a lot of information to tell the story about the Anago School District and all the good things going on here from a financial perspective. And we put that out to any underwriter in the world that wants to bid. And this morning at 10 a.m. we received 4 credible bids, with the winning bidder being recommended as TD Financial Products LLC with a true interest cost of 4.25%. Giving some perspective, another client of ours that is around the same size in the Appleton area received only 2 bids for a $14 million issuance. They were 1 notch lower, so their credit quality was a little bit lower, and their interest rate was 4.5%. So just give you a little bit of insight on the same day, how different credit qualities and sizes of issuance can make an impact. And I think the district is finding itself in a very positive position in comparison to some of the interest rates we've received on the first 2 issuances. On the next, if you're into all of the detail, you'll find that on the next page. So this, as I alluded to at the onset, is the final issuance of $20 million. You can see the first $14 million was issued in December of 2024. A subsequent $20 million was done in July of 2025. And then for your consideration this evening is the final $20 million. One thing that I would pull out is the highlighted blue. So when we do an issuance, similar but a little bit different to like a home mortgage, we're able to build in what's called a call feature. So all of the blue debt upon getting to that point, so for example, on the 14 million, you'll see in 2033, 560,000 is the first highlight. So when we get to 2033, all of that debt would be callable, so future boards can pay that debt off early if there's the ability to do so and equity available, which under Wisconsin finance may be not possible, but who knows, 7, 8 years from now. But more importantly, the interest rate of 4.08%, if the market offers a lower interest rate, at that point, future boards can consider refinancing or lowering the exposure on the local tax levy to support that. So you can see on the far right, without taking in the advantage of increased equalization aid, which is a big component of the pre-referendum discussion, well, our goal is to flatten out the levy required to pay debt. And you see that happens at 3,761,000. So as properties or equalized values are volatile going up and down, our goal is to have the levy required to repay the debt flat for as long as possible and not create volatility. So in theory, the mill rate associated with debt will be going down because the levy does not need to go up once we lock in all of the 54 million. On the final slide, just some quick highlights. I talked through some of these already, but again, this is the final 20 million from the November 2024 referendum. If approved this evening, what the closing date is the date that funds would be available to the school district to begin covering expenses related to the remainder of the construction project. That would happen on August 10th, 2026. Principal maturity are from 2027 to 2046, assuming no prepayments in the future. First interest would be in March of 2027, so the first impact on this issuance, which we built into the plan on the prior page, would happen this fall as you consider your final budget approval and setting the tax levy. The call date on this one is 2034, similar to the first 20 million, so those were aligned, so a large chunk of debt would be able to be refinanced, which we did strategically. Talked about the credit rating, an S&P A+, and then the final AIC or true interest cost of 4.25%. Versus what we had been assuming through the pre-referendum of 4.49%. So some good news that we received in the market on that. With that, I'll pause and, of course, answer any questions that you may have.
I have questions. So this is my first experience with this kind of thing, so this may be, whatever. From what I read online, public school districts reasonably expecting to issue no more than 15 million in tax-exempt governmental bonds in a calendar year are exempt from arbitrage rebate. So I'm assuming since we're going for 20, that we are not exempt from this arbitrage rebate, or maybe we're just 5 million over is gonna be. Can you explain what that arbitrage rebate is about and how that plays out?
Yep, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about this slide, so if you're interested in kind of tracking what I'm saying, that's where I'll be talking from. But
on the blue highlights?
Yep, the financing plan header.
Okay.
So you are 100% correct that every school district receives a ability to issue up to $15 million in a calendar year, and that issuance, if issued at a tax-exempt basis, would not be subject to arbitrage. So I use this slide because that's what we did in December of 2024. We took advantage of that because we didn't know exactly the flow of funds and how quick that the construction project was going to ramp up. We knew that we needed some infusion of cash for architectural and engineering, but we didn't know how much. So actually that 14 million is some of the last money spent, because when we think about arbitrage and going above that $15 million cap, we're subject to spend down requirements within a 24-month period. And where we're at in the construction project is if this closes in August of 2026, our expectation is the full 20 million will be spent out prior to August of 2028. So that 2-year period is really what we look at from an arbitrage perspective. So the answer to your question is yes, we are above this, and this is subject to arbitrage, but we do not believe that arbitrage is going to be an issue because how quickly these dollars are going to be spent throughout the remaining construction.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say that, so when we do this, do we have 24 months in order to spend the money? We have to spend it within 24 months.
You don't. Even in today's rate, you're earning less than 4.25%, so you're likely not going to be subject to arbitrage anyways. Because if you're investing, let's say you're going to be investing at 4% or less in what's allowable under state statute. So really arbitrage is looking at within that 24-month period, making sure that you don't earn more than what you're paying out in interest. It's not that simple, but that's the simplest way to understand it. it does not require you to spend it within that 24 months. So even if you're below that arbitrage, which you're going to be, 425, earning 4%, using my example, which is pretty close, you can still go beyond 24 months and not be subject to arbitrage rebate, which is paying Uncle Sam a portion of the earnings you make.
I'll also add, I think there's a typo in the, on page 2 of that, the thing that's in board docs, under that issue 3 where it says 20 million issued August 10th, the first line, that first bullet after that, I think that should be November 2028. All those funds be spent by November 2026? Is that right?
Are you talking about issue 1?
Issue 3,
Issue 3,
the
yep.
first bullet, current projections show all funds will be spent by,
Yeah, I believe that's November of 2027. We can verify that and double
Oh,
check that for you,
2027.
but my understanding is that the majority of this 20 million will be spent by November of 2027.
because the little sub-bullets under it say 100% spent by August 2028.
Yeah, so that's when I was talking about arbitrage in the 24 months. Those are the requirements. So 10% has to be spent within 6 months, which would be February 10th, 2027. And then you can see that there's 3 more tests within the 24-month
Ah,
period.
Okay,
And so because
see.
you are projected to spend this, which, thank you for pointing that out, November of 2027, that's just showing that we're going to be spent out before the
I gotcha.
24-month period.
thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
I just want to confirm, am I speaking into it now? Okay. That the bidder from TD Financial Products you had shared earlier, I think I heard you correctly, that bid came in at 10 a.m. today?
Yeah, all 4 of these come in at 10 a.m. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And second part, because I think it's probably really important to taxpayers, is if you could just repeat the statement you made about it is not anticipated that the tax levy would have to increase.
That is correct.
And why behind that?
And the why behind that is that's kind of what we had built pre-referendum, and what we're showing on the slide titled financing plan is we're getting your levy flat at 3.761. So if approved this evening, those are actual levy amounts that would be required on an annual basis to support the repayment of the principal and interest. And you can see within the box,
Oh.
it doesn't change materially. I mean, it's within a couple $100.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I just want to add one more thing too. I had not heard of PMA Securities, so I looked them up.
Uh-oh.
And what I read was that they are partners with hundreds of Wisconsin school districts. So I'm guessing you guys know what you're doing.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Okay, we will get the vote up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone like to change their vote? Okay, if we could reveal the results, please. And it does pass unanimously. Moving on to B, consideration to approve the transfer of Fund 46. I'll be looking for a motion.
I move to approve any allowable surplus from fiscal year 25-26 to Fund 46 as presented.
Thank you, Jill. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I am not on the finance committee, and I did not attend that committee meeting, but I do believe that was on the agenda for the committee. I don't know if a member of that finance committee would like to speak to that, or Kelly, but I just would like the motion on the floor to be discussed. So that's why I made the motion.
Thank you. We'll turn it over to Kelly.
All right, so we did go through this in depth. I did put a lot of detail, a significant amount of detail, 4 pages worth, in the topic summary sheet that was scheduled, or that has been in board docs well in advance for everybody to read. So I'm not going to read all of that to the board. I think you've all had time to digest that. But just a very 10,000 foot view of Fund 46. That is a strategy that our administrative team and the school board has been putting into place since we have been here to capitalize on interest, which is a significant taxpayer savings. It also is aidable, so that lowers the taxpayer burden instead of putting it into fund balance. It also is a long-term strategic plan for capital improvement, for your capital improvement plan for the district. So we plan strategically with the budget and have put a significant amount of effort into realigning the entire budget starting in August of 2023 when I arrived. And since then, we've been able to put millions of dollars into Fund 46, almost 5.5 million, and then have gained almost $400,000 in interest because of that strategic move. This is also something that we put into place to ensure that our district has a long-term capital improvement fund to avoid future capital referendums that we have seen in August of 2023 when we came to this school district, that there hadn't been a fund that was able to be used to sustain the facilities that we've had, which then caused the need for a brand new elementary school, which thankfully was passed, and we can have some excellent facilities for our future kids. So at the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th, we still have bills coming in. We still have the audit that's happening right now, so we won't have a exact amount for you on this topic summary sheet. That is not something that is unique to our school district. That is how school finance works. So that is why the motion reads any allowable surplus. And I don't like to call it a surplus because we strategically plan and align our budget for student outcomes, which our outcomes are increasing, so that strategic alignment with the budget is proven to be working well, and also having that strategic plan of a Fund 46 transfer at the end of every year.
Thank you, Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
So Kelly, this is a budget surplus though, correct?
So if you do not use your entire budget in that year for things like curriculum, instruction, salaries, facilities, all of those things, if you strategically align those so that you're able to have a transferable amount at the end of the year, you can put that into a fund that then compiles over the years. You can gain state aid from, and you do not have to then go out for a referendum in the future. So yes, it's technically extra funds from that fiscal year, but we are planning for a Fund 46 transfer. So otherwise, in the past, people have came to the end of the year when you may not have filled a third grade position. You might have $100,000 left in the budget for that, and you can do one of two things. Spend it on something within the last 30 days that might not be necessary to spend it down to gain aid, or you can put it into your fund balance and then that hires your mill rate the next year, or you can have a strategic plan in the beginning when you do your budgeting in August and October and come to the board with a plan of having that money able to be moved into a fund that's used for strategic long-term facility planning.
So can you give us a ballpark
No.
figure? No.
We've seen how that has played out when I give ballparks and things might change. I will not be doing that.
Okay.
Kelly, I've got a question. I was reading the Wisconsin statute about Fund 46, and it has a couple of time-related comments in here. One, it says we're supposed to have an approved long-term capital improvement plan for at least a 10-year period. Do we have
Yes,
that?
yes, we do.
Yep.
And
I'll-
where can I find that?
That's in board docs, as well as comes through the Building and Grounds Committee and then goes to the school board. I believe it was last approved in December of this year. I'd have to double check, but
December 2025.
I would request that Jake follow up with the last, I don't know offhand either, Jake could probably find it faster, we all could look back in board docs because it's approved by the board. And the reason I find it important to comment on this is because that's what got us to the point of needing to go to referendum, is we do have a capital improvement plan that is approved by the board. The problem is that we've never had money in Fund 46, so we could not do, we knew all the needs that continued to grow and grow and grow, but we had no monies in that account, so we could not care for our facilities, which is why it got to the point that it did, and we ultimately had to go to referendum. So this, I recognize not everybody sitting at the table currently was on the board when the referendum passed. This was an important piece that our current administration was found to be very important, and the board at the time, and I would presume or hope currently, is that we maintain a Fund 46 capital improvement fund balance because we want to maintain our facilities. We've shown that collectively, for the existence of our district, we haven't maintained our buildings. We've made that shift over the last several years to create a fund balance, so it's super important.
And how about, do you recall when the fund was created? Because there's this, you can't spend money until 5 years after the creation date.
it's been created well over 5 years. It just didn't have money being put into it. So we are able to use it. Right now, we're strategically using all of the funds. That's something that our current administration has put into place, where we are aligning all of our grant money, all of our Fund 46 money, all of our referendum money, and then our Fund 10 money to be very strategic, and so that we can capitalize on interest being gained. So right now, our Fund 46 is gaining interest while we use the referendum money in alignment with the with the referendum question that was designed by lawyers to ensure that everything in that was also in alignment with our capital improvement plan as well. And then, as we all know, with construction, different money comes in, different bids, prices change. So we've been very strategic in making sure that those two things are aligned while capitalizing on interest at the same time. So we can have that capital improvement plan be a item on the Building and Grounds Committee to discuss that a little bit deeper and then bring it to the board if necessary. But yes, that is something that has been and is frequently referenced. I think we just had it on our desk today when we were meeting with architects.
And so you are interpreting it as fund creation is, you know, just the fund itself, not when money starts going in there.
There are layers to that, but yes, I know for 100% fact that we are well in alignment with that time frame.
Okay.
I don't have the exact date off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But we don't need to know the date actually, because we are well in alignment with that 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Angie?
Thank you. I just want to say, Kelly, it's Angie. Hi.
Hi, I'm Kelly.
I just want to say that we are very fortunate to have a very knowledgeable finance director that can think strategically and put these funds in place. Because I know when we were going to referendum, a lot of the community was wondering, like, how did we get in this situation with our elementaries, and why are they in such disrepair and stuff like that? And we didn't have the funds for maintenance. We haven't for like 60 years worried about maintenance. Now we are able, with the strategic thinking and planning that we have, because of having somebody in this position that can think strategically, we do have a fund set up for maintenance, so we're not going to run into this disrepair state with our new facility. And that was something that was brought up to me several times, like, well, if this gets approved, how do we know we're not going to end up in the same boat 30 years from now with the new high school, or the new elementary, rather? And this is exactly how we're not going to end up in the same boat. So it's very important that we keep a Fund 46.
Thank you, Angie. And I just wanted to say, within this report that I put in, I did put historical narrative around the different grants that we've used strategically, the amounts of money. So there are very specific details within here for the board if you do have questions, you can definitely reach out and ask, because there has been a very significant amount of work that's been done since '23 to be able to utilize millions of dollars of ESSER funds and build this Fund 46 to where it is today. And I think that this board will find that to be an excellent resource when you're thinking about just some of the things that Fund 46 can be used for. I know that Schofield Stadium had just come up in prior comments and prior meetings. Things that are really important to our entire community, the youth of our community. I know athletic facilities have been discussed, things of that nature. So when you're thinking about Fund 46, through the lens of students first, community-wide, I think that this board can definitely think about some excellent ways in which to build the future of the district with such a significant amount of money within the fund. And then also, you're lowering taxes for your local taxpayers by putting money in here. So it's a win-win for the district now and in the future.
Any other comments?
Putting money in that fund also keeps our funding higher, correct?
Correct. So sometimes people get things confused because school finance is very confusing. You only get a portion of money, and depending on where you put that money at the end of your fiscal year, the pieces of the pie, just to simplify it, are state funding and taxpayer funding. And when you put it into Fund 46, your state funding, it's still the same total amount, but your state funding, which is your equalization aid, goes up and your taxpayer goes down. So one of the things that you'll notice when you look, and I give detailed reports in my October budget meeting, and you can go back into board docs and find, decades of history of the mill rate, and you can see that before we came in 2023 and really utilized Fund 46, the mill rate was significantly higher. So you can see how that's lowered the mill rate for our taxpayers significantly. And we have, there's some questions in the back, sorry, that was distracting. But there is history of how that's definitely positively impacted our lowered of mill rate, showing that now that we even have a $54 million referendum, we still have the lowest mill rate in decades.
Any other discussion?
I just have one further comment because Kelly brought it up and it prompted a thought. It's my understanding that $1 million commitment that was made to our Gridiron Club for the football field fundraising was rescinded or pulled back because of concerns with the district's ability to maintain our facilities. And so I guess my goal right now in this comment is to highlight again that we are strategically planning for capital improvement, and it's the hope that perhaps that donor may be willing to reconsider, or that this conversation positively impacts other potential donors to see that the district is acting in good faith to maintain our properties, not just now but in the future, that it doesn't negatively impact programs in which we have a lot of student involvement.
Any other discussion?
Kelly, when are you going to have an exact number for Fund 46? In August, do you think?
July 30th is the law of when you have to have it transferred. So I will definitely have a report in August, letting you all know at committee and then at board meeting how much that was. So it's cause for celebration. It's kind of like Christmas in July.
Any other discussion? Okay, we will go to the vote.
Not just me, Randy.
Dr. Myers.
Well,
Anyone like to change their vote? Okay, we can reveal results, please. And it does pass unanimously. I'm going to get that by the end of the night. All right, moving on to item C, discussion and possible action on appointment of impartial hearing officer for employee grievance. I'll be looking for a motion.
I move to approve Attorney Robert Burns as the impartial hearing officer at the rate of $250 per hour.
Thank you, Angie. Would you like to speak to your motion?
This is something that we legally need to do, so no.
Anyone have any other discussion?
just have a question. How many hours would something like this normally take? Any ballpark figures?
There's no way of really knowing because it is the second step in the grievance process. So we are at the point where we have to have an outside hearing officer. There's no way to gauge that. I wouldn't imagine more than a couple of hours for at most, but
Okay,
it
so
could be
not
longer.
likely more than 10 hours or something ridiculous like that?
There's no guarantee.
Well, do we want to set a limit on the number of hours?
We can't do that
Okay.
because
just
it's
gonna
part
chime-
of our grievance process, so we can't limit that.
Is
Just to
Attorney
chime
Burns
in
someone
here,
we've used in the past?
Normally, the hearing officer, the procedure that they're going to go through is they're going to set a scheduling conference. That usually takes about 30 minutes. They're going to ask to receive materials beforehand. Depending on how much is sent, there's probably going to be an hour or two of prep for that. And then there's going to be the hearing itself, which normally lasts about 2 hours, but there's going to be travel time included. So I would say all in, you're probably looking at 10 hours.
Mike, I believe you were going to speak.
Yeah, I was just asking if Attorney Burns is someone that we've used in the past. Well, there's several new people here, so I guess we're just curious on the process.
So I am
I-
oh, Davis, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't believe we've ever used Attorney Burns in the past, but one of the primary reasons for that, at least in my time working with the district, is we haven't had grievances get to the point of independent hearing officers. But Bob Burns is incredibly well respected and does a lot of this work now later in his career.
And how was he selected? Or who selected him?
Meaning what?
Who picked him?
That would be at the recommendation of our office.
I had seen online that commonly IHOs are appointed by the Wisconsin Employment Relations Commission, so I didn't know if that's who we had used.
So that could be with respect to bargaining and collective bargaining and arbitration,
This was with respect to personnel issues.
right? So it could also be with respect to matters involving police and fire, where that is more heavily involved with the Wisconsin Employment Relations Commission.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Any other discussion?
So this is the second step in the grievance process, and then if it's not resolved here, it's my understanding that it comes before the school board? Is that accurate, Glenda?
Yes, I believe that to be correct.
Any other discussion? Okay, we are ready for the vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Okay, we can reveal the results, please. And it passed 8-0. Item D, consideration to approve WIAA Senior High Membership Renewal 2026-27. I'll be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the WIAA Senior High Membership Renewal for 26-27 season.
Thank you, Mike. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No, this come up in committee, and Mr. Schofield spoke about it there, and it's kind of a routine thing that we do yearly.
Any discussion? Okay, we'll be ready for the vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Okay, we can reveal the results, please, and it passes 8-0. Item E, consideration to approve the co-curricular codes for Antigo High School and Antigo Middle School. I'll be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the revised Unified School District of Antigo co-curricular codes as presented.
Thank you, Mike. Would you like to speak to your motion?
This was also at committee, and Mr. Schofield shared out a couple highlights. We had the codes before, but we merged the documents together, added a few things, added some requirements for parents. And one of the cool things, I think, are the new app that we're going to be using. So everybody's using the same thing to communicate with everybody. I think that'll clear up a lot of things for our families.
And one thing I want to add to that, Mike, is that I think at the committee, we talked about it being Team Reach, and it's Sports U, correct, Mr. Schofield? So just to clarify that.
Any further discussion?
Mike summarized that all well, and I agree with the Sports U app being used. I think that's going to be really beneficial for consistency at the middle school and high school levels, and then it's for sports and co-curriculars as well. So I know sports tend to use apps a lot, but if there's an activity or co-curricular that also uses an app for a form of communication, they would also be included in this. So it's, again, streamlining that form of communication, and then also the open records needing to be able to secure communications, should there be an open records request, is another component to that.
Yep, and we have direct access because Mr. Schofield is like our
The
internal
communicator.
administrator over it. Yep.
Any further discussion? Okay, we will be ready for the vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Okay, we can reveal the results, please, and it passes 8-0. Item F, consideration to approve AMS Student Handbook 26-27. I'll be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the AMS Student Handbook as presented.
Thank you, Danny. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No.
Any discussion?
This also came to committee, middle school admin presented, and highlights from that is just they celebrated the expansion in offerings with electives is not the word I want. What is the word I want?
CTE and electives,
Okay.
yeah, for the
Okay.
class, yep.
But CTE elective courses, so expanding that and really focusing on interests in, related to our community and student interest. So that's fun and exciting. And one thing with that relative to academic achievement is it provides options. So if a student is not interested in graphic arts, they could take welding. Don't quote me on those classes. I'm just giving an example that like
Photography.
so now you're aligning interests, which are going to reduce behaviors tied to avoidance and staff time and things like that. So really looking at student interest and expansion of what we have to offer within the CTE program. And I know that CTE in general has been a hot topic and concern about reduction in CTE courses. So this is really good work at the middle school level, and what has been put in, the wheels were in motion last year already, year and a half ago, to expand to the middle school. So this exciting work that the middle school is doing and implementing.
And expansion at the middle school leads to expansion at the high school.
Yeah, because it's the feeder program.
Any other discussion?
Heather, you might be able to answer this. Earlier this spring, there was discussion about hiring a ag CTE teacher at the middle school. Is that something that happened, or did we realign?
Yes, it did happen.
It did happen.
I just want to make a comment on a thought that co-curriculars are, and CTEs are very, very important, because when families are looking to move to an area, they're often looking at what electives or CTE, whatever you want to call them, the extra
Programming.
classes
Mhm.
that their kids will get at the middle school and high school levels. And so I just think it's really important that we take a look at that area and really focus in on that area, because if we want, it goes into, you know, community economic development, we want people to come here, we need to not only have good testing scores, obviously we need to be ranked well, not at the bottom, but then also we need to be able to offer good CTE elective courses for our students that take to help them navigate their, you know, their future. So that's all.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, we will take it to the vote, please. Anyone like to change their vote? Okay, if we could reveal the results, please. It passes 8-0. Item G, consideration to approve the first reading of Neola Act 89 policies. I'll be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the first reading of Neola Act 89 policies as presented.
Thank you, Danny. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I just have a question. So when we look at that, now Team Reach is struck out of there for acceptable forms. So now does that have to go back to policy committee for?
No, because it was still the same concept. It was
Okay.
just the title of the program
Okay.
being used. Yeah.
Good question.
Any other discussion? I would just say that this probably looks very familiar to everyone. They just basically changed the act that they were, they changed the act number, so everything looks very familiar, but it was updated across the board. If there's no further discussion, we'll take it to the vote. Anyone like to change their votes? Okay, if we could please reveal the results, and it passes 8-0.
Must be catching.
Letter H, discussion and possible action on the continued operations of the Clara R. McKennick Aquatic Center and creation of a committee with respect to any continued operations of the Clara R. McKennick Aquatic Center. I'll be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the creation of a committee for the purpose of continued operations for the Clara R. McKenna Aquatic Center.
Thank you, Danny. Would you like to speak to your motion?
So is this committee going to be basically like the task force, just reinstituted, or how is that going to work? Is this going to be where the foundation can come and meet with the selected members, talk about financing and those types of topics?
And we have Davis on as well.
I would assume that is the purpose of the committee, yes. Previous discussions that this was going to go to Buildings and Grounds Committee. So are we wanting to just incorporate the Buildings and Ground Committee and then including community members
As a subcommittee.
as a
of Buildings
subcommittee
and
of
Grounds.
Building and Grounds?
And who will determine who's on the committee?
Whose vision is this? Like, maybe that could help, because I think we're all kind of like, I don't know.
Davis, can you hear the questions that are being asked about the committee?
I can.
Okay. So
If-
Angie's last question was, whose vision was this?
Well, I guess there was just a motion to approve committee. So
If it's a
If it-
subcommittee of the Buildings and Grounds Committee, it would be the chair of the Buildings and Grounds and the board president who would come up with the committee members, in my opinion, because it is their subcommittee. So that's the answer to one of the questions.
Randy, weren't you the one who suggested this at the, no?
I've been beating this drum, but I tried to get hold of Danny, but I guess he's still out of town, regarding exactly what this would include, whether it would include someone from the Y and community members or not, and I didn't get any response. So I think as long as it is inclusive and we get enough people to the table that have an interest, then I think it's a good thing. I understand the task force didn't accomplish quite what we had hoped for, but that's no reason not to keep trying.
And I could be wrong, but I thought that this is just my interpretation of this, is because we don't have a Fund 80 designated employee to talk about these things, is that this committee would be established so that we could talk with the foundation and talk with other people in the community so that we could start to establish some sort of baseline budget or whatever it may be, so that we can go to the foundation with funding requests or meet with the Y and talk about those certain topics. That's what I thought the committee was for. I know that, I believe last month I did bring up the fact of having a committee or something established. I think it was going to be part of our finance committee, but then that got changed. So that's what I'm assuming this is for. That's an assumption based on previous conversations that we've had.
I'm glad you brought that up, because at the task force, we had, I don't know how many meetings we had, like 3 or 4 meetings with the task force, and it was determined at, for sure, the last 2, and the last task force meeting, I know for a fact it was determined that the holdup with the Aquatic Center is the fact that we don't have a Fund 80 position. We don't have a person to be that person to go between the 2 entities. And the school administrators are not to be spending their time on that, but we need somebody to be that go-between. Doesn't need to be a committee, and I don't feel, because then you're gonna have too many cooks in the kitchen. I think we need one person that was that Fund 80 position, that the task force agreed on that we needed. We've talked about it a couple times at committee levels, with the full school board. Our attorney has said, yes, that is the direction you need to go. So I'm not sure why it wasn't brought to the school board, which is our next agenda item. But I don't want
a little bit.
Yeah, I don't want to get into that, but I just think that Fund 80 position would be better suited versus creating a committee in order to move forward and be efficient and best use of time and get things going.
I still feel like a committee would be a good idea. I just think the Fund 80 person would be a good person to be the head of that committee, so to speak. But I think we still need to incorporate
And that's fair, yeah.
other voices before decisions are made. My biggest question too is just, how do you form the committee? Is it by application? Is it by appointment? And who's doing the appointing until we get a Fund 80 person? Or do we table it until we have a Fund 80 person, I guess is my biggest concern.
So-
Did you talk about the board president appoints committees? Did you mention that?
I did not. I said that, so for the task force committee, we discussed as a board who would be on it, and then reached out to those people. I know that they, like the county sent a representative, the city sent a representative. So we discussed together here at the table who all we would be reaching out to. As the board president does assign committees, that is our policy, but since it is a subcommittee of the Buildings and Ground, I would think that that Building and Grounds chair would also be a part of that appointment.
My questions are simply, what would make this different than the task force? What would help? Presumably, this committee would have overlap of people that were present on the task force, and we were unable to come to an outcome. So what makes this committee different than the task force in terms of the barriers experienced? What would help the committee mutually accept the budgeted numbers that have been provided and shared out, because that's a point of contention of us versus them, and you can pick which side you are in that example, doesn't really matter, it's still a us versus them fight. So what makes this different? And then questions about how this committee operates. I'm curious if anybody's aware of any committees or subcommittees at the city council or county board that have a subcommittee to oversee a $700 to $1 million operation. Like maybe we just use the model that they use. I don't know that there is a subcommittee of citizens or people assigned to oversee a budget that high, or I guess any budgets, but maybe. I don't have that information. I didn't think about that till just now. But I'm not sure how this, I'm not opposed to this formation of a committee. I just don't understand what differentiates or distinguishes, makes this different this time around than the first time around.
I think those are great questions, Jill. I was not on the task force, but I attended all the meetings. I attended all the ones I knew about. But it seemed like the task force stopped meeting at some point when there was conversations between the two attorneys maybe, and so they sort of sat back and let the attorneys do the talking. So maybe one difference would be that the committee meet, every month or every 2 weeks or whatever it is, maybe more often initially or something.
Can I address that? What Jean was saying?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So on the task force, as I understand it, how it was left was in the agreements that we needed to have a Fund 80 position. Yes, you're correct. The attorneys were talking back and forth. But the agreement was that we needed to hire a Fund 80 position, and that was the role of the school district. And so we needed to put in place, all the procedures to hire, hire a new position. And so we can't move forward until we have that position. And to I agree with Jill, if we don't have that person that's going to be the go-between, it's going to end up being kind of like the same thing with the task force, and it's going to be very circular.
I guess my concern is in the information that was presented to the Finance Committee, they need to have another $100,000 in Fund 80 before they can hire such a person, and how long this is going to take. I was not part of the task force, but it's my understanding that there really wasn't a direct discussion regarding the differences in the budget, nor has there been any discussion by the board regarding the Aquatic Center budget for 26-27.
I would say the budget was highlighted consistently and a point of contention. I'm not sure I don't know if I'm just trying to remember offhand, Dr. Myers, if you attended any of the task force meetings. I also did along with Jean. I was not on the task force, but attended them, and that took a significant amount of time, and quite honestly, feedback I had heard or received from task force members in various capacities in entities they represent is that it was just an arguing match of this budget to that budget, but nobody was focused on seeking a resolution. It was literally a fight over numbers, which at the end of the day, you have baseline numbers, whichever side you want to pick for those numbers, but you still have to fund the operation, and that's where the task force also lost momentum. Was it just focused on this is incorrect, this is correct, this wasn't done, this was done number-wise, but I presented a solution, I offered a solution. I don't know if others did or not, it wasn't part of the task force, but it really wasn't solution-focused, it was a fight over numbers. So I'm sorry that I'm not looking at you, I'm answering your question directly, it's just this, how this table is laid out. But finances, that was the focal point.
I think everybody wants someone available who can start getting the repairs that need to be done to the pool. And I guess my concern is it could take us some time to get this person established. And I think in the interim, we should have input from those people who have been most involved with the operation of the pool over the last 25 years.
Again, I'm just gonna refer back to the task force, and that the members of the task force from the foundation and others, along with members that were on there from the school board and such, came to the agreement that, yes, we do indeed need this Fund 80 person to, the position to be created and hired, and that really was the linchpin. I understand what you're saying. I hear you, but I'm saying that that's really where we're at, and if that means that, we had talked about the foundations, helping supply some funds and, and everything like that, and that was really part of it, so we can't move forward without that position.
I guess in our discussion that we had at the Finance Committee, Glenda related that it was the position of the board members of the task force that this is what needed to be done, but not the remainder of the task force. Is that incorrect?
That's incorrect, as I understand it. Because
I see Tom madly waving his hands over there. I mean, I've had several discussions with Tom and other people, and they did not feel that they were the ones that they had agreed that this was the way we need forward. I think we do need a Fund 80 person. Don't get me wrong. We clearly need somebody to direct this, but I'm not convinced that it needs to be a full-time position. I question what they're going to be doing all day.
Okay.
This is a difficult discussion because the next agenda item, and I respect why it was placed where it is. I think it's just this is hard because here we are talking about the need for this position that we actually could not vote on creating tonight. So it makes this discussion really, really difficult. And we're spinning our wheels in the same types of discussions. I guess it's getting irritating. And I'm just venting at this point on behalf of all of us. Like, we want a solution. We want a resolution.
If I may chime in, going back to the original question of kind of what the vision of this task or this committee would be, it would not be that of the task force. This committee, I think as Danny put it, would be to fill the Fund 80 position or serve in lieu of that. So the committee would not be comprised of over a dozen citizens and board members. It would be a more focused group to communicate directly with administration and the board and the Y, and they would basically be the individuals who are running or overseeing the operations of the aquatic center. So that burden could be lifted off of administration.
Okay, so
So it's not, the idea would not be to reform the task force and to begin again all of the conversations that were being had at the task force level.
Okay, so what, Davis, am I understanding you correctly that the committee would be the ones to create the Fund 80 position and go through the hiring process, interviews and stuff like that? Is that what you're saying? No.
No, the task force would be, so just the other day, this situation arose where um, I believe the Y needed some supplies ordered. And they reached out to administration, asked administration to order those supplies. That would be a duty that would typically be done by a Fund 80 employee. And so administration was concerned about spending time to do that. I understand that we're talking about a relatively nominal, small amount of time, but as these things continue to creep up, they take a significant portion of the day. And so the idea was that these things could be tabled, and on a monthly basis, the YMCA could come to the committee and say, these are things we need. The committee could discuss, consider, take action on, and then have a direction be given to administration to place that order, or be given to the YMCA to place that order and have it be.
Okay, so then we would not, are you saying that we would no longer need the Fund 80 position? Is that what?
Obviously,
No.
this is, as you hear me explaining, an efficient process. So I do not, if I were to advise the board on the best course of action, it would be to create a Fund 80 position and have that person oversee the operations of the aquatic center on a day-to-day basis, and be that go-between between the YMCA and the district. But if that position isn't going to exist, then there needs to be a gap filled, and that gap should be filled by a subcommittee. It should not be placed on the shoulders of administration, given the fiscal constraints.
So I do want to just outline that a lot of what Davis just said is what I was trying to intend last month when we were talking about this, but also I can't talk too much about it because it's on the next item as to why we decided not to approve it at committee level. But I think that for this committee, just to establish a clean form of communication, come together. We've had voting now. We had some of the money come in from the foundation, get the foundation at the table, talk to people, get city reps and a former board member from the pool, and just get us in the same room and have an open, honest, transparent conversation, and then put forward the recommendation of how much we feel that a Fund 80 person would be, and then the district administration would have to go for that or review it. It's just, I just think that at this point, if we don't have this committee, there's just no conversations about anything.
And I would just add, even if we did approve another position, that there's not going to be someone here to do it tomorrow. So I think that we're at a position that we need a subgroup of people to communicate to the board. And maybe if that committee is only board members, you're still opening up the communication and invitation for other people if you're needing help and advisement and opinions. And by having it be a committee versus the task force, there'll be a set agenda with goals for each meeting, and I think that was maybe a missing piece of the task force as well.
Yes, and then with having the Y there, we can, whoever's on there can talk about, this is what we're bringing in, this is what we thought we were going to bring in and we didn't, so we need X amount of dollars now for the next 3 to 6 months, just to have some sort of conversation around that. That was what my intention was with bringing up a committee like this.
So would this fall under open meetings law? I would assume so, because it's a subcommittee. We'd have to post an agenda and keep minutes and everything. Okay.
So I'm just gonna ask for clarification and say, if I understand what was being said, the committee in the interim would kind of take over the role of what the goal for that Fund 80 position is. And then once a Fund 80 position is hired, it would then just convert to more of a support role?
I guess we would have to
mean,
revisit
or
at that time if we,
visit
you know,
what's needed
get
at
rid of
that
the
point.
committee, but we still, you know, you still have to have that communication piece
Right.
between the Aquatic
Oh, I
Center,
agree
even if you're not making those day-to-day decisions, there still needs to be that committee, that conversation piece.
I would also note that it, language is important, so once a Fund 80 position is hired, we cannot say that at this moment. We don't have an approved Fund 80 position, so currently, the Unified School District of Antigo is not supporting a Fund 80 position, so let's work towards that. But right now, we don't have that, even approved to create a job description and posting.
So in this discussion, do we need to talk about what this committee looks like, or are we just saying, yes, we want to create a committee, and then who decides what it looks like?
We would decide to create the committee, and then Danny, as the board president, sets that committee,
So, okay, so he would
just
decide
like any of
who's-
the
okay,
other committees.
Okay.
So, can I make a motion to
You-
vote on something?
You could amend this motion, because there is a
So-
motion on the floor.
Okay, the motion is to create a committee, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
I would like to add the amendment that the committee includes a representative from the Y, community members, particularly from the foundation, of which Mr. Koss is the president of, and other community members as Mr. Pyatt and the chairman of Buildings and Grounds would see fit to add.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
I just really think if we have a committee made up of board members, that does not accomplish what we need to have to get strong community support and funding that's sorely needed for Fund 80 from our community.
So essentially, recreating the task force that was in place.
Correct.
But didn't go anywhere.
No. Didn't you hear what Mr. Rundy just said? It would not be a recreation of the task force. It would be something to get things going, to get the repairs that need to be done. Until we have a Fund 80 person in place. Maybe also to talk about whether this needs to be a full-time or a part-time position.
Respectfully, I think that was the exact reason, or really close to how the task force was created, with the same representatives on the task force that are offered within your amended motion. I just want to make sure that it doesn't become unclear what the purpose and role of this committee is, and that it doesn't get blurred, because I feel like it's currently unclear. And if we are essentially recreating, using different language by having the same people at the table, I just feel like it's going to get messy. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing, and just, we didn't get anywhere.
I just want to say I agree with you, Jill. I think when Davis said it was not like the task force, that was when we were looking at a motion to create a committee as general. But if we want to start naming specifics, like Randy listed off, then it really is starting to look again like a smaller version of the task force. Good, bad, or otherwise, I just want to say that I think it's better to leave it general. And then we can work from there versus having very specifics in this motion.
So are you saying like start with a committee, just a subcommittee of just board members from the building and grounds, and then that committee can expand or add or invite as they
Yeah.
see fit? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like,
Okay.
we could have a subcommittee, okay, so what I'm envisioning,
Mm-hmm.
would be like the subcommittee would meet, and then it would be made up of the board members and, who, possibly like the Y or something like that, but then from there, we would decide, okay, we're looking at having one person from the community or none, I don't know. Or we're having one person from the foundation or none, I don't know. But that's a discussion that we would have at that level, not here.
So I'm looking at a paragraph from back in the HR Finance Committee meeting, the topic summary sheet on the creation of the Fund 80 position. I'm looking at a paragraph in that, and I'm thinking we could kind of steal that and modify it. This would fit with Davis's contention that this is kind of a gap filling this committee. So instead of the administrative coordinator, we would say the committee would work collaboratively with YMCA staff, the Anago Schools Foundation, district administration, and the Board of Education. Coordinate operational initiatives, support programming and facility needs, assist with financial oversight of Fund 80, facilitate communication among partners, ensure that all stakeholders remote. I mean, that general description of what had been put forward as a potential action item for the Fund 80 position is, I think, what we're shooting for on potentially a temporary basis with this committee. So not the same as the task force.
So that's a fair point, and that makes sense, Jean. And as you were saying that, and I'm reading my notes from Attorney Rundy, I'm wondering if we're just overthinking this. So going back to what Attorney Rundy said, it would be to discuss, consider, and take action on items needed by the YMCA. So if we simplify this to a subcommittee within Building and Grounds with staying consistent that the board president appoints people to be on that subcommittee, we are simply no different than Building and Grounds, CNI, who am I missing, that comes to us at committee to say we need to purchase curriculum at a cost of X amount of dollars, and we discuss at committee, and then we make a motion. If that passes, we approve at the board level. So this, I'm just wondering if maybe we're just overthinking, and it's appointing a small group of people that are simply, here's the purchase request needed. It needs to go to committee first before the full board, and we're just kind of the liaison, no different than what our current committee structure is.
Right. And I think you could say then that the members of the committee would not have, the Y would not have to have a member on the committee. As long as that committee is actually working collaboratively with the Y and with the foundation and with the administration and with the board, right?
Yeah, so it's to function as we are, continue our normal and customary way in which we maintain committees, because I'm looking at my CNI director and I'm like, she's not appointed to my committee, I don't believe, right? But you participate, you're like the focal point, because you're the one that says, here's what we're needing, here's all the work we did to prepare it, to say this is why we need it. So yeah, like, we would be by default in how committees operate, working with the YMCA. They would be coming to us to say, to us, whoever that is, to say, here are the discussions, considerations, or payments needed.
Deanna, can you read back to us what you have for the amendment, please?
The amendment is to, The amendment to add YMCA members, community members, and Pool Foundation members to the committee.
YMCA, community members, foundation members, and community members as director of building and grounds or board president see fit. Okay. Do we have any more discussion on the amendment of the motion?
I'm going to vote against it, and the reason being is because I think we need to leave it very generalized. Kind of going off of what Jill said, you know what I mean? Just, I think it needs to work as a committee like how we have our other committees. And if we start naming off like that, then we're getting too far into details and weeds, and it's just gonna
so to speak.
I just have a procedural question then.
Sure.
So the amendment is on the floor, that's what we're going to vote on. What happens if that does not pass? Does it revert to voting on the original
The
motion?
original motion, correct.
Okay, thank you.
So I do just want to comment to you, Angie. So I feel at this stage, if we do not have specific people at these conversations, we're gonna get nowhere. I think we have to have some of these key people. If we're gonna be asking the foundation for large sums of money, they should be at the table. They have to be there for us to have a conversation about finance and say, hey, we need X amount of money based on the WISE information. We're at this amount. We need X amount. If we don't have them there and we just leave it as general and it's just us board members, I have no more insight into the district's Fund 80 outside of our monthly meetings. I mean, I have no idea what's going on at the pool on a transaction level or any of that on a daily basis. So I think I am voting for this because I feel we need those specific people at this committee.
And I appreciate that. Again, like, I don't think that they need to be a part of the committee. Yes, I want to collaborate with them. We would collaborate with, the YMCA, the foundation. We want that collaboration. But kind of going back to what was said before, like our administrative team, like they're not part of the committee, but yet they're there giving the information. So the collaboration will be there. They'll be invited to be at the table. We want to work with them, but I don't feel like they need to be part of the committee. Does that make sense? Because then we're kind of tying our hands if we do that, I feel. And I don't want circular meetings, because that's frustrating for everybody.
And I would say that when we're making these types of decisions, like financial decisions, like how much we need to ask the foundation for, or should we change what we're charging the hospital, or what that decision is, that's the responsibility of the board to make those decisions. And ultimately, if you're having community members on the board, they shouldn't have a vote as to how those things change. They can have their input and provide the information, but they shouldn't be the ultimate decision maker. That's the responsibility of the board to make, the school board to make those decisions.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, yeah, but I just think that we do need to have their input.
Oh, yeah. Collaboration
Just
needs to be
specific
there,
people.
yes.
I mean, I don't think we don't need 10, 12 people on this committee. That's just gonna get too much.
Davis, were you going to add something?
I was just going to add that they are certainly welcome to come to meetings at the invite of the committee and have that discussion. I'm not sure Kristen was necessarily heading there, but as she was speaking, it kind of rang in my ear, conflict of interest. So, that is another thing that has to be taken into account when, if you have not to say that anybody on the foundation doesn't have a high degree of integrity, but you don't want people in those situations who have a financial stake in the decisions. If they're coming to the committee and saying, yes, we are willing to do this, fantastic. But there's a certain pressure if they are on the committee.
So at the end of the day, we can call this a different committee, we can do all kinds of different things, but in order for anything to be productive, we have to have the ability to have conversation. We can't come to a meeting and say, well, I approve this and that's it. There's no conversation that happens. And so the Aquatic Center is part of the school district. So it could be on the Buildings and Grounds Committee agenda, and we could work through those things at that level. But we need the information in order to make decisions. We need to have those audited budget reports. We need to have those explanations from Fund 80, Fund 10. And I know some of you may have that stuff, and I know some of those things because I've been to a lot of meetings and I've done a lot of research. But we have over half of us sitting up here are brand new to this position. So we need to get everybody up to speed. We need to talk to DPI and figure out exactly what we can and can't do. And we need to move forward with these things. Being that it's a district building, I think we can use different funds for different things. I know for a fact we can. So we need to be able to have that open conversation, sit down and talk things through, and then make a decision. It doesn't matter what we call it, how we do it, but we have to be able to have the conversations. And right now, there's not a lot of conversations. People come and we have public comment, and that's about it. There's not an open dialogue back and forth, and I think that's what we need to get to in order to resolve these things. This is a big deal.
I just have, again, another procedural question. Sorry. So if we form this committee or a subcommittee and its board members, and we're saying that we want those voices at the table, I don't know enough about committee meetings. Like, are they able to come to a committee meeting and just speak, or do we have to put them on an agenda? Do they have to sign up when they get there like they do here? I just don't know how it works at the committee level.
Yes to all. So if
Okay.
if they want to, they would be invited to the meeting, and it would be an agenda item, and then they can come to the table and openly discuss. If it's not an agenda item, then they would come and sign up for
Sign up
public
for
comment
public.
as well.
Okay.
So it's yes to all.
Combination.
Yes.
Okay.
You would
Thank
be,
you.
It's an invitation to the agenda.
So it's basically like a mini board meeting, so to speak. I mean, just on a smaller scale. Same
Only they
goals.
can engage in conversation.
Correct.
And
Yeah,
we
you
can
can
converse.
engage in
Okay.
conversation, yes.
Perfect.
I mean,
Thank
the
you.
YMCA by default would be invited to that meeting, because they're the ones that are going to know what the expenses are that are gonna be requested. Aside from that, I don't know who else would need to be at the table specifically to knowing, here's an item, here's the cost. We're asking this to be discussed at committee and moved to the full board for approval for payment, right? Like, I mean, I guess I'm thinking out long-term too. What stops Gridiron Club from coming in to say, we would like a motion to approve the creation of a committee for the purpose of continued operations for the fundraising efforts of the new Schofield Stadium multi-purpose, multi-sport field? What stops the Hockey Association from coming in and making the same motion to say continued operations for the build of a district-owned hockey rink? Like, I'm just thinking past just the aquatic center. I feel like we're setting a precedent now to say, if you are heavily, because we're also skewing, right now who's at the table is heavily skewed on one-sided. We're not objective on who we're saying. And I'm not saying I'm one way or another, I'm just simply saying it's very evident that we know that it's a full yes with the entities listed, right? We're just setting ourselves up to say, now this group of people wants this, and the taxpayers should fund it through Fund 80, and we are coming to hassle the board to say this committee needs to be created because we want a football field. We've been working really, really hard at it. You've done your due diligence, school district. We had $1 million commitment that was pulled, even though you're doing what they said you're not doing. Like, where does it stop then? Who do we say no to next? Because I would say if anybody's listening to this that wants to fundraise or have their own space, they should be emailing to get on the next agenda. So it's something to consider.
Discussion on the amendment on the floor. So to clarify, we will be voting on the amendment to add the YMCA Community Members Foundation community members as Director of Building and Grounds or Board President see fit. We are only voting on the amendment to make that the main motion. So if you want that to be the main motion, you are voting yes. If you do not, you are voting no.
And then if it does fail, it goes to the original motion just to create the committee.
Correct.
Just so
That is
everybody
correct. It
knows.
would go back to the original motion.
Oh, wait.
someone like to change their vote? Okay, please reveal the. So it fails. It tied 4-4, motion fails. So now the original motion is back on the floor. I move to approve the creation of the committee for the purpose of continued operations for the Clara R. McKenna Aquatic Center. Any further discussion on the motion on the floor?
I would
Okay.
like to amend the motion.
Okay.
I move to approve the creation of a committee for the purpose of continued operations for discussion, consideration and possible action on items needed by the YMCA for the Clara R. McKenna Aquatic Center as, I had it in my head. While a Fund 80 position,
In lieu of?
yes,
Yeah, in lieu of a
Yes.
Fund 80 employee.
but, well, I want the intent behind the amended motion is to show what the intent of this committee is. It's kind of like an ad hoc, it's a,
Subcommittee.
Substitute?
an interim position.
Oh,
so to speak.
interim.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
That's what I just did. But the language is still not in lieu of, because I don't want it to replace. I'm hearing you entirely. You're going where I'm going, so I should finish my motion.
If you add that, then if someone were rehired, that would dissolve the committee at that point in time. And also, you're limiting your function of your committee. So if you're only addressing the needs, the YMCA needs, then this committee wouldn't be able to address membership fees, increasing costs or charges of this or that. So you're very much limiting what your committee could do.
Those would be at the directive of the YMCA, though, aren't they currently? I did not write this out.
You said on items needed.
Yes, for the YMCA, but the YMCA would be overseeing the cost of memberships, would be overseeing this fix is needed, correct? Wouldn't they? They would know what would be needed there, or not?
Yes, but then you're making them bring it to the table versus like the chair of this committee putting
Scratch
on.
YMCA. My goal of this motion that I'm working really hard at is to just show that in good faith, we are moving towards the creation of a Fund 80 position. Creation of okay, now I gotta talk to myself. For the purpose of discussion, consideration, and possible action on items needed for the continued operations of the Clara R. McKenna Aquatic Center?
It's your motion.
Repeat that. Just repeat it for me.
That's
I'm
the
trying to
original
follow.
motion.
Well, I understand, that's also what I'm thinking right now, too.
Okay. So you want to rescind your amendment to the motion?
We can yeah, sure, cancel that. I just want this more clarified, and I don't know how to do that right now.
My fear is if you add more clarification, you're putting more limitations.
Yeah.
Any further discussion on the motion on the floor?
I just want to say I will be voting yes to this, and I hope that we can start moving forward with all the parties in collaboration.
So clarify, we'd be voting for the original motion. Any further discussion?
So Kristen,
Yes,
with
sir.
with it how it is, so every month, does the YMCA then have to be on the agenda as a topic then, to present or go over anything?
At this committee?
Yeah. Do they have to? Because if they're not identified, do they have to be there in order for us to have an exchange?
So the agenda would be set by the chair of the committee.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is something that the YMCA needs to be involved in, it would be an agenda item that they would.
They request the chair to put that on, or they request it to the board president or vice president. How does that work?
They would
The
call
board
the
chair?
board chair, yes.
Okay.
Of the committee.
The committee chair.
the committee
Sorry,
chair.
The committee chair.
Okay.
And I would anticipate that, yeah, pretty much they would be there every month because they're the ones managing the pool. So that would be like a standing invitation.
But
It's
they
kind of like
have to-
a standing invitation when we talk to our, finance director,
Mhm.
curriculum director. Same.
Is that an option, or do they have to formally request it, though? Because if we say standing invitation, but then if they don't formally reach out, and then we don't allow conversation, I just don't want to get in a position where we don't have conversation with them.
Could be like the current committee schedule, though. So like,
So
Ms.
at-
Hutchin, go ahead.
So as the chair of a committee, if Amy's on my committee and she approaches me and says, I would like this on the agenda, as the chairperson, why would I tell her no? Like, that just,
Well, no, I'm saying if we just have like a standing invitation, like we just said, and they don't formally say something to the chair, and then they just show up, we can't have that conversation now, right?
it would have to be an agenda item
So
to
they
have.
have to formally request every month to be on the agenda to talk. They can't just come and have a
Well, the
conversation. That's what I'm
chair-
trying to make clear.
The chair would put it on the agenda. The chairperson sets the agenda. But if they
Have
just,
to tell them the topic.
yeah, they would just have to know
Okay.
the topic, but the,
I mean, it could be as simple as updates from the aquatic center.
Okay.
Just a standing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not being a pest. I'm just
Yeah.
really trying to make sure that they don't miss something, and then we don't miss something, and we still can talk about it.
What I would foresee is a calendar invite by the chair and co-chair of that subcommittee that includes the YMCA. So that is to create the agenda monthly. So it'd be a standing meeting to create the agendas. Again, I'm not going to speak for those people because I don't know who they're going to be. But that's that is a way to ensure that any of the items that are needed, because no, I'm the chair of the CNI committee, and I wouldn't be able to be like, Amy, this month we're gonna have to purchase this, and, that's Amy's role, right? So we aren't overseeing the daily operations, we're approving the expenses of, essentially. They know it, so we would want them at the table to know what the agenda items are to work collaboratively, know what the needs are.
My question in regards to that is, they're employees of the district. Is that an employment requirement that they come to these meetings?
Yes,
So
well,
we can't
if there's a
require-
topic, they come to
Right.
present.
So we can't require that the Y has someone at the meetings or that the foundation has someone at the meetings. So what?
Well, but why would they not?
I know-
Because
no,
they're
and I
gonna
get
have to
that.
be there to have
Yeah.
those
I
conversations
get that
about all
completely, but
operations.
Then can things be like,
There,
do we just
there's a
table that and
provision, excuse me, there's a provision in the contract with the YMCA that they will make one of their representatives available for any meetings.
Thank you. That helps immensely. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna call the question.
Can somebody reread the motion, please?
It's the original.
It's the original motion.
Well, what is the original motion? Discussion and possible action?
No.
No.
Recommended.
The original motion is I move to approve the creation of a committee for the purpose of continued operations for the Clara R. McKenna Aquatic Center. So we will be voting on the original motion. The voting device is
Whoa.
open.
Well, I'd like to be first.
Anyone like to change their vote? And the results are, please, and it does pass 8-0. Letter I. H&R Finance Minutes. Would you like to make a motion? You're looking for a motion.
I know. I didn't think about that till just now. Can I make a motion of Fund 80 position?
I move to create a half-time $50,000 Fund 80 position for the Clara R. McKenna Aquatic Center.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
I really liked the proposal that was put forward at the Finance Committee meeting, other than the full-time nature of it. I'm hoping that getting the ball rolling with just saying halftime will get us somewhere. If we learn later that we need it to be full or 3/4 or something different or less, whatever, we can figure that out, but I'm just trying to get the ball rolling with something that possibly the majority of the board could approve.
Any other
Yeah,
discussion?
working on it. Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead,
Okay,
Andy.
so if it's a half-time position, that would mean no benefits, but if it moves to full-time, what would that equate to, Kelly?
Full-time benefits are about $30,000.
Okay, thank you. So a total of 80,000 if it moved to full-time.
Well,
Well, and the
well, in
salary
the
would be
original,
lower.
And-
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
and in the original one that was put forward was 100,000, so I mean, if
Okay.
you go to full-time, just expect a minimum of 100,000 from their original proposal.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted a clarification on that.
And that was an approximation.
Okay.
So, speaking to Jean's motion, thank you. The reason I had asked to go back and stand true to my word of why did I want to move this as a separate agenda item is simply because the creation of a Fund 80 position is a need. Like, it has to happen, as evidenced by the significant amount of time that this school board of education has placed on discussion of a community pool over education of students. We have spent hours upon hours upon hours as a board, as task force members, as committee members, and as administration. Days at this point, it feels like, and I'm not being facetious, talking about a community pool and funding a community pool. We have not spent, this board or the previous board, in my experience as a board member actually, this amount of dedicated time to discussing the academic achievement of students who attend the Unified School District of Antigo as Board of Education members. Given that a Fund 80 position is required to remove the self-imposed barriers at this point of not having a Fund 80 position, I was interested to learn why, or have discussion on why not a Fund 80 position, because we are having the same discussions over and over and over again. And again, I've talked to task force members who said the same thing. This is ridiculous. We are going nowhere. We are not solution focused. I would offer the thought, and I'm considering, and I'm terrible at making motions clearly, of not limiting it to a halftime position, but simply of creation of a Fund 80 position, which allows the creation and the work to create that position to be done. And then if it's determined that it's a full-time or part-time, we have that flexibility. Part two of that is because my proposal in seeking a solution to keep the aquatic center open, but tying it to our strategic plan, because never once in the hours upon hours upon hours of these discussions has anybody, aside from myself, and correct me if I'm wrong, said, how does this align to our strategic plan? So, we're not talking about education. We're not talking about our strategic plan, which drives our decision making. A Fund 80 position resolves one of two significant barriers. And I'm not going to do an amended motion yet because I don't have the language.
So you could make a motion to strike the part of my motion that said halftime 50,000.
I was trying to remember the words you used.
I can tell you the words I used because I wrote
Say-
it down.
Yeah, perfect. Would you mind saying the full thing again? This full
I
motion
move
again?
to create a Fund 80 position for the Clara R. McKenna Aquatic Center.
So you're wanting to change your motion, is that correct?
No, I'm
No, she's
helping
not.
her write her motion,
Okay,
which is to strike the halftime 50,000. Usually you just say the move to strike and then you don't have to say the whole thing, but, you know, it all works out.
Part of when we were discussing our strategic plan, part of the discussion was having a public relations portion to help with that barrier between the community and the board. The way I see this, if it's just a Fund 80 position, not anything specific to the Clara R. McKennick Aquatic Center, is that probably at first it is a full-time job to get the aquatic center back where it needs to be. And once things are leveled off, that may not be a full-time job, but a PR position is probably able to fill what hours would be left available. And I think that if we have just this general Fund 80 position, it can be included in the job description, that type of thing, instead of specifics that we would have to revisit if anything changed. So that is my thought as far as a full-time position.
So that was where I was going. Is it a strike through, or should I amend the motion? Amend the motion on the floor.
I think
Okay, I'm gonna amend the motion on the floor to, I move to forward to, jeepers. I move to approve the creation of a Fund 80 position. And I will speak to that motion by stating the solution I had proposed and also was supported by members of the task force. I won't name drop because I didn't ask their permission, but they're well respected in the community. The proposal I had was tying back to our strategic plan, which is a public relations type position. And so by limiting, keeping it broad of a Fund 80 position, it provides us the opportunity to focus on, as Kristen said, a position that would start likely as the aquatic center, because that is probably going to be a full-time position, again, the amount of hours we've spent on this. And then also gives the opportunity in the job description to merge that as a 50% aquatic center director, so to speak, a 50%, and I'm just throwing out numbers, PR position, which is in our strategic plan. The aquatic center is not, but this bridges that gap. PR issues have been brought up in various capacities, various task force. So we are working on that in tandem, which is really only to strengthen the community as a whole. So it doesn't limit us, but it ties to our strategic plan, and it's a Fund 80 position. That's more broadly stated. We clearly have the minutes and the recorded meetings to show that the intent is focus on the aquatic center, and it has that potential for growth.
I'm reading from the DPI website. Somebody asked a question on their FAQ page about public relations program focused on community engagement with those expenses assigned to Fund 80, and the answer is this expenditure would be considered ineligible for all related costs beyond the sections that can be easily documented as tied to the activities provided through, oh goodness, I thought this would be helpful, but an allowable Fund 80 expense related to sharing CP. My interpretation of this, which is foggy, makes it sound like you could have a public relations person, but they'd be public relations for the pool because it has to be tied to a community program and services thing. But
Davis, are you still on?
Davis, can you read this page? I don't understand this.
So the what Jean is concluding is correct. I mean, so if you had a PR aspect position, that is fundable through Fund 80 so long as the PR work is to promote the community servicer program.
specifically of the pool.
Or any other community service program that is approved, but the only community service program or community program that the district has, I believe, is the pool, so yes.
I have a question. So can you have a person that's 50% funded by Fund 80 and 50% funded by Fund 10?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you can. And they have split job descriptions.
So when the time comes for that, if it does, then the committee that we just created would work with the HR committee to figure that out, that the portion that comes from Fund 10 versus Fund 80, and then create the job description in addition to the Fund 80 job description for that person.
Well,
So one aspect of this that I think this is a great discussion. And I don't mean to kill it, but you need money for these positions. You need money for a Fund 80 position, and you need money if you're going to split the assignment. You need money out of Fund 10. I don't necessarily know, as the finances stand right now, if there's, I know for a fact within Fund 80, there isn't money for that. I don't know if there's money in Fund 10 for that. So you'd have to consider another request for donated funds in the interim. And then you'd also have to strongly consider, if not bind yourself to a decision in the future to levy additional funds.
So we're back at square one with the committee.
Or what came first, the
It
chicken
all
or the
starts
egg?
with money,
How would you ask for
unfortunately.
money without a position that doesn't exist? How do you have a position without money? I think it's easier to ask for money if you have a position with a job description that this is what this person is going to do.
And that is fair. So the only reason I'm bringing this up is just so no one is blindsided about a financial reality. But I think it would be perfectly reasonable if the motion passed conditioned upon funding.
Okay, so we've had 2 amendments to the motion. That's the most we can do. So if, no?
Only one.
Oh, we've only had 1 amendment?
Jill, yep. Jean was the original motion and Jill amended the motion.
Okay. Can I make an amendment? And my amendment would be that we hire a half-time, part-time, Fund 80 position, or that we create the Fund 80 position. So long as funding is available. Or, I'm not sure like the exact words we should have that, or if that's good enough. That way we're not locked into it if we are not able to get funding.
I think if we put that in there, though, isn't that going to, because if we don't have funds right now, then that basically just shoots that down.
I think where Davis is going
We
is
have
that
to-
we don't have the funds to continue to pay for the pool either. So
Mhm.
we need the funds for Fund 80, but we also, right, Davis, like, at the end of the month, we're running out of money to have a pool open? Or am I thinking about this incorrectly?
So, I guess I have one question quick before Davis provides an answer. So would this have to go back to committee level? Would the administration, if we approve a Fund 80 employee-based 50,000 or 50/50, whatever we wanted, whatever this is gonna be, does that have to go to committee to finalize a salary number to be voted on, or is that happening right now?
That would be happening right now.
So we would have to determine a salary.
We don't have to put a cap on it.
We don't have to put a cap?
No.
But are we gonna put, are we gonna put some sort of a cap on, like not to exceed the original estimate, not to exceed 50,000? Is there,
With Angie's amended motion, does not include a
Okay. Cap.
salary.
So I could add that.
But typically, when you create a position, there isn't
Okay.
necessarily.
So would that be left up to the new committee that we just created?
You could,
That's
because
gotta
then
go
you
to-
also need to consider that whomever you might entertain hiring, they may want to negotiate, or you may struggle filling the position.
I mean, cause
So
we've
you
gotta
have to
have,
leave leeway for that.
Okay.
But typically, when you create a position, you you don't necessarily always say, we're only going to offer $50,000.
Well, right, and you certainly wouldn't want to offer that in a public meeting. 'cause then-
Correct, because then they're gonna come in and say, I'll do it for 50,000.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
So if we keep it broad at this point, that yes, we're just approving that this position can be created, then at committee level, they now have or they can talk about it at,
So the
committee
process,
level?
the process typically is, the intent behind this going to the HR Finance Committee was simply just to create the position. Nothing can happen until that happens first. Then you develop the job description and all the other things that go along with that, but that typically is an administrative task. But considering this is for a Fund 80 position, then Davis, I would assume that would be the task of the subcommittee, correct? To do that, or no?
To do what exactly?
Create the job description for the Fund 80
Oh,
position.
No.
That would be.
I think that would
within
be,
your
Yeah.
duties.
They're a school district employee at that point, so I mean, we wouldn't be able to create a job description based on district policies and handbooks, and I would assume that would have to go to administration.
Yeah.
regardless if it
'cause
goes
we don't-
to, oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, because if we're not in the day-to-day of that, and that committee's not gonna get into that minute and fine-tune of policies and handbooks and day-to-day apparel and all that fun stuff, that should go back to the administration
Correct.
to develop
Yep.
that, because then that takes liability off of us as a
Yes.
subcommittee
Yes.
of establishing that. So I would, long route, I would send it back to the administration for that portion.
I guess I just wanted to keep it broad enough that we could still work with it, but also not nail us down to absolutely having to create that if we are not able to get the funds in place. Because we have to keep the doors open to
Yep.
some way, somehow.
Well, the position couldn't be filled if there aren't funds. So, I mean,
Right.
just because you create it doesn't necessarily mean it will be filled.
Okay.
That's
So
not
I don't have to
guaranteeing
have
that.
in the motion.
No.
Okay.
But this is just basically step one, and it
Yes.
is
Okay.
broad, but nothing else can happen until this happens.
Okay, so
So
I
we
take back
just
my
keep it
motion then.
generic, kind
You're
of.
gonna rescind your
Yes.
motion,
And-
okay.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm gonna rescind my motion so everybody knows, so we're back to the original.
We are back to Jill's motion,
Yes.
which was simply, I move to approve the creation of a Fund 80 position.
Yes.
Any further discussion on the amendment to the motion? So to be clear, we will be voting to make this the main motion. So if you want to change the motion to, I move to approve the creation of a Fund 80 position, you will be voting yes. If you do not want to do that, you want it to leave the original motion that Jean made, you will be voting no. To have a $50,000 limit on a part-time position. Okay, is everyone ready? All right, we are voting on the amendment to the motion. Anyone like to change their vote? Okay. We can reveal the results, please. And that passes 8-0. That now becomes the main motion on the floor. I move to approve the creation of a Fund 80 position. Any further discussion on the motion?
I just want to say, yay, finally, we're moving forward.
There's just a lot of flexibility with having an open-ended. It doesn't have to be tied just to the aquatic center. There's districts all over the state that have Fund 80 positions, community engagement coordinators. They might manage the pool for 10% of their day. They might do something with the school forest. There's a lot of options. So I think, don't have tunnel vision. Do a little research, and you'll be surprised what you can do with this open-ended position.
Good call, Mike. Anything else?
I'm hopeful that with this momentum of seeking solutions, being solution-focused, that this board would be really willing to dig deep moving forward to say, we're gonna have this intense of discussion every meeting about academic achievement because our students deserve to learn and excel academically. I'm gonna challenge us as a board to take that energy driven by having a school district funded community pool, not funded by anybody else, and use that same energy to say, we are gonna be that dedicated Whitefish Bay or whoever is in number one spot, we're coming for you. Because we deserve that. We've shown collectively as a community that we can care strongly for a community pool. I sure hope that the Board of Education can show the community that we can care even more strongly about the academic achievement and outcomes of our students. So I appreciate the work that was done tonight to come up with steps to move forward on a resolution.
Okay, everyone ready to vote, please? Anyone like to change their vote? Okay, if you could please review, and it passes 8-0. We will be moving to board information, an update on the TIF meeting and the WASB symposium. Jean, I'll turn it over to you.
Boy, this is so exciting. I thank you for not leaving. You know, basically you can just read the documents, but the two pieces of information for the TIF, essentially it's just important for us to know that somewhere along the 4 to 6 year period, these financial districts that the city created will be terminated, which will affect property values in our school district and hopefully lower the mill rate, all other things being equal. So it's a ways down the road, but just to be aware of it. And then that at the WASB symposium, I was the only person there from the board. It was definitely worthwhile, especially since it was so close. And I gave highlights from the different talks that I went to, but there were a couple items of interest I wanted to just share with the board. If we ever wish as a board to survey the community, staff, parents, or students, we should definitely consider using the professionals at School Perceptions. They participated in one of the talks that was given, and I was just really impressed. Of course, I don't know what their pricing is, but I was really impressed with their presentation. And second, there's a new thing that WASB's come up with, well, new-ish anyways. It's a framework for kind of organizing the way that the board evaluates the superintendent. And it costs money. It's like $300 or $400 a year. If we wanted to learn more about that framework, they're willing to give the board like an online presentation for free. It was pretty interesting, you know, something to consider down the road. And that's it.
Thank you, Jean. Anyone questions for Jean? Okay, then I will be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thanks, Jill. Second?
So moved.
Angie. All right. We are adjourned 8:49.